You're watching Startup Central with me, Nayantara Rai. This is the only show of its kind on Indian television dedicated to startups, innovation, technology, disruption. 2020, the year that belonged to Elon Musk. And let's talk about something else that he's up to. I'm talking about Starlink. Have you paid $99 yet for Starlink project for which you could have internet at a speed of 150 MBPS wherever you are on this planet, as long as you have a clear sky? I think that's the best way to explain it. It's going to be done by satellite. But let's get you an expert view from Silicon Valley. What exactly is Starlink? Can it deliver on all the promises that Elon Musk has been talking about? Ray Wang, the principal researcher and founder of Constellation Research, are now joining us right here on Startup Central. Ray, thank you. I know you had to wake up really early for this live broadcast, and we love having you on the show. So we love it when you make that effort. First up, tell all of us in India very simply, what is the Starlink about? It does sound crazy, but then Elon Musk doesn't do simple things. A satellite that's literally going to be showering internet on this planet.
It's a great question, and welcome everybody. So Starlink is basically a bunch of low-orbit Earth satellites that allow you to connect to the internet, especially in areas where there might not be broadband or people haven't dug utility cables to deliver the broadband capabilities around the world. You see a lot of people today might have satellite phones. That was just a short-term answer for voice, but when we think about data, what Starlink is doing is the same thing. It's providing that capability of end-to-end coverage around the Earth. And part of Starlink's ability to be able to do this is really coming through the Falcon 9 rockets, which are launching these satellites at a rate of 60 satellites a time per launch. And what's going on with each launch right now is basically they're getting closer to the original target of 13,000 for a first set of Starlink operations. And then they're going to get to about 40-some thousand satellites that are going to be orbiting the Earth in low orbit to be able to connect your data, connect your signals anywhere in the world.
So, Ray, what I want to also ask you is that, as all these satellites are being sent to do this, the broadband, internet, all of that at great speeds, 150 Mbps is what Starlink project is talking about. What about regulatory approvals? We don't know how various governments will respond to that. I would imagine telecom companies, internet companies will be lobbying very hard against this. And is this based on the assumption that, sovereigns around the world don't have to come out with rules? Because that sounds also a little too difficult to believe.
So here's the challenge. It's going to be interesting. It may be available to you. The question is whether your country will allow you to be able to access it. And this is going to be the interesting challenge, whether governments and sovereign nations will be able to block your access to be able to get to the internet via the Starlink satellites, or will Starlink work with the governments to create the regulatory framework to be able to access. This is massively disruptive to telecom companies around the world because you can access internet, and it's massively disruptive to governments because you can access the internet without government intervention. So imagine if you're sitting in China and suddenly you can access the internet without the Great Firewall. This is going to be very interesting. And the question is, what's going to keep someone from being able to receive that signal with these orbits, these low orbit Earth satellites everywhere?
So that's my next question to you then. So governments may want to block it, but can they block it? Technologically.
Well, it's going to be interesting. Technologically, they could limit a spectrum from being there. They could try to, jam a signal. But there's a lot of satellites. We're talking 40,000 satellites. You might have at least 15 over your coverage area in terms of a city. So it's going to be interesting to see what the rules are. Because right now, there are none. And basically, that's why it's a land grab in space to put up as many satellites as possible. And that's why SpaceX is really ahead by being able to do that with the reusable rockets.
Ray, they're talking about a $99 deposit. Tell all of us here how that exactly is going to work. We don't know when Starlink will go live. People are perhaps paying this deposit, not even knowing if their countries are going to be allowing it.
That's a classic Elon Musk move. I was one of the early people that put, I think, $1,000 down or $5,000 down for a Tesla in, I don't know, 2008. I didn't even know if the car was going to come out until 2012. At some point, I thought I wasn't going to get my money back. But no, I'm joking. I'm saying that this is just classic Elon Musk to raise the interest level, to raise people's commitment, all around the world. I have some friends that are using Starlink already today here in the U.S., and they've been satisfied with the signal. So it does exist. It does exist in the U.S. We're not sure if it will exist in India in terms of the regulatory framework. Maybe there won't be a regulation around it. We're going to see what happens, but they will return your money. I don't think they're going to take your money for that.
So, Ray, tell me something else. Space is, of course, something that not only Elon Musk is trying to get into the business of. You've got others, whether it's Sir Richard Branson or Jeff Bezos, etc. Are they also looking at this?
Yeah, a number of people are looking at this, but not everybody designed their rocket to do multiple things. The Falcon 9 rocket was interesting because it was designed to be able to carry humans into space. It was designed to launch the satellite network that they're building for Starlink, and was designed to create a whole business in private space. And the privatization of space travel and space launches really started with the ability to get back to reusable rockets, low cost launches. And I think they've proven this, especially given the fact that, they've been launching more rockets reliably than anybody else in quite some time. And this is the ESA, this is the Russian launch facility, it's even the China facility. I mean, they've proven that we can get back to space and do it in a low cost fashion. I mean, you've got companies like, that are, government contractors in the US that still can't get their reusable rockets up in a cheap and low cost alternative.
Okay, so this is something that they all are looking at. We've also, of course, heard about tests that Facebook and Google were carrying out in Africa, trying to use drones to literally shower internet and broadband connectivity. So that's something else. That's a different model.
That's a different model. There were some models. Google had the Loon project, which was pretty interesting, which were balloons that were up in the air that was covering, that can create coverage. Those work, right? If you want temporary coverage of the internet in an area, drones can do the same thing. If you're flying in certain types of patterns, you can definitely do that. I think we're going to see more of the expansion of the internet. The vision that Vint Cerf had seen and others when they launched the internet almost 60 some years ago, that is real. And it's really a matter of coverage. The real question is whether we'll have the right to be disconnected if we want to be.
Ray, you talked about how some people are already getting the Starlink connectivity, etc. Elon Musk himself has conceded this is going to be great, not for the urban centers, and this is for the low density areas of population, because maybe you're not even seeing companies invest in broadband over there. But is that just the way you start till you figure out what you're going to do in the urban parts? Because I'm guessing that's where you will make the money, right?
Yeah, there's going to be money made, but the rural areas are great, and the areas that don't have connectivity. If you think about what people have been doing with anywhere around energy exploration, if you think about being in remote locations, if you think about, the people that have not had internet access, one of the stories that came through over the last couple of weeks, and especially during the pandemic, was how Starlink is helping some areas within the United States where they don't have broadband access connect to remote schools, remote learning. You're going to see that very important, necessarily in telemedicine and remote healthcare delivery. And you're also going to see this with utility companies that have to manage, their wires, their production, some of the transmission lines, being able to get that to places where traditionally you wouldn't be able to have any cell phone coverage or any data access, which means you can now actually be able to start creating new types of services in those areas. The money's definitely going to be made, not just in the remote areas, definitely in the urban areas, but there's a lot of competition. So it doesn't make sense to start in the urban areas. But for someone that wants to be able to do autonomous vehicles managed through low Earth orbit satellites, that's going to be very possible to run large trucks back and forth, get lorries from one part of a country to another part of the country. And, that's going to happen through these Starlink satellites. I think there's even talk about putting that connected to your Teslas.
Yeah, that preempted my question. I was going to ask you that, is this the obvious synergy with Tesla, right? Because you have to drive through certain highways, rural parts where you may not have connectivity, and then what happens to your Tesla cars? Before I let you go, Ray, and I'm going to make this my final question. If this is successful, this is going to be a massive disruption. It's how we all will perhaps use the internet. We won't be married to a telecom company or a network and things like that. Would you agree with that this could perhaps be the next big disruptor?
Oh, this is a massive disruptor, and this is why people are looking at the SpaceX. They're looking at the Starlink IPO as a potential spinoff that will be the next unleashing of the Elon Musk empire, and it's all interconnected between transmission of being able to connect to the internet, the green energy initiatives, and the autonomous vehicles. It's all one big story, and I think a lot of people haven't seen that yet, and I think that's why a lot of people underestimate what Tesla is up to. It's a big empire that Elon Musk has created.
Ray, it's always a pleasure talking to you. Thanks so much for joining us here on this edition of Startup Central. Once again, thank you for waking up early. We love having you on the show. So till next time, thanks once again.
Take care.
We're going to take a short commercial break. Ladies and gentlemen, coming up on the other side, it's the top team of MyGlam, a beauty and personal care brand. It's a D2C brand as well that has raised 175 crores, a massive check which has also been given by Amazon. What's so hot about MyGlam? How is it upping its beauty quotient? We'll find out after the short break.